Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest, I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, is Leslie Harpole. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Adi.
It's so good to see you and good to have you on this podcast. So, Leslie, you're a client, a friend, you are an amazing entrepreneur, and just the way you operate in your business and in life is so inspiring that I'm sure our listeners are going to be so inspired by your story and by what we're going to be talking about. So you are the co-owner, together with your husband, Brent, of Champion Plumbing, which is a plumbing company in Oklahoma. You started it from scratch, from nothing, and you basically built an empire. That's what you did.
That's what we're trying to do, yes.
That's right. And not only that, you also, you're like a marketing genius. I mean, that's really how you build a company. You really understand marketing. And now you started your own podcast. You're definitely very influential in the field of women in the trades, right? Women that owns businesses in the trade. So the name of your podcast is Power Women in the Trade. I definitely recommend to our listeners to listen to it. Great episodes. I was definitely lucky to be one of your guests. It was an awesome episode that we did, and we talked all about processes and systems. And, you really, you are definitely an inspiration in terms of how you run your business. You're also a mother, a very dedicated mother, and you have you definitely seem to have the balance in your life, right? At least on the outside. I know you're going to tell me, no, I don't, but you do, right? Because compared to others, you definitely do. So, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got started with Champion Plumbing. How did you arrive to the point where you're at right now?
Okay, sure. Well, Adi, I'm so excited to be here today, and we got to catch up because I do consider you, at first, you were one of our vendors, but now I consider you a friend, and you've just done amazing work in my life. So I love a chance just to get to chat with you. So Brent and I started in May 2015. We started doing new construction plumbing. That was not the best journey for us. And then in 2018, we started over from basically rock bottom and rebranded into Champion Plumbing. And we are a residential plumbing service company in Oklahoma City. So now we have just
It was really rock bottom, right? I mean,
it was really rock bottom, yes. So when we were doing new construction, we thought that was it. Brent thought, oh my gosh, I'm an amazing plumber. Of course I can run a business, hindsight 2020. Plumbing actually has nothing to do with how to run a business. So we tried new construction. We were not profitable. That's a very difficult segment to be profitable in. So we hired a consultant in 2018 and we started over and rebranded into Champion Plumbing.
Absolutely. You're a strong advocate of women in the trade, right? It's in the trades. And what is your passion? I mean, other than being a woman, obviously, why are you so passionate about it?
Well, for me, it has been really, the trades have been really good to us. And one thing that was so important to Brent when we started over is he wanted to bring respect back to the trades. Now, my experience of being a woman in the trade is different. I am not out in the fields. I am not turning a wrench. And there are many women who are doing that, and it's fantastic. For me, it was really having a platform to run this show with my husband, and that we are both equally important. We're both working on things in completely different ways. And now we're kind of seeing, since I've been on the scene, and I haven't been on the scene very long, but at least in our groups and in our network, there are a ton of husband and wife teams. And so one thing we always advocate for is trades can be a first option for many people and not a backup plan, as opposed to college. There's so many great things about going into the trades financially, it being recession resistant. So we talk about that a lot. As far as my own experience being a woman in the trades, is just the network that I have found. Of course, there's probably been some rude comments or whatever. What do I know? I'm definitely not out there turning a wrench. I'm not doing any of that, but I do feel like I brought a lot of value into growing and building our business together.
Absolutely. I'm probably we have listeners right now that are a husband and wife team or a family business, right? What are some of the challenges that you experience working with your husband?
Oh gosh, if I had only had a recording of the many conversations I've had with you over the years, I think the biggest challenge for us, and I can only imagine for other husband and wife teams specifically, because depending on whether it's family, it could be father and son, mother and son, those all bring different dynamics to what you're dealing with, right? Ours specifically is being a husband and wife team. And anytime you're an entrepreneur, it's a distinct personality type that we are, right? You can do all the DISC assessments or whatever assessment you want to take for people that are business owners. We're different. And one of the things that makes us special is probably, our dominant and obsessive thinking about how to grow, how to handle problems. You're always solving problems in your business. Well, when you come home to your business partner that's also your spouse, it doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, right? We're talking about it. It can pop up at any time of the day, at dinner, at bedtime, in the morning. And so there's definitely a challenge of, number one, staying in your lane of what you've decided your role is going to be. And number two, being really intentional with that time that you have with your family.
Absolutely. And I think we worked about it a lot. You and I had discussions, you and I and Brent, and we set up the systems in order for you to actually operate as business partners and not bring it home, right? And one of the things that we really emphasize is setting the boundaries, right? I mean, when you're at home, you're a husband and wife and father and mother and part of the family, and you don't discuss business. I mean, and I know it's easier said than done, right? But what are some of the things that helped you set those boundaries, right? Because we have listeners right now that probably want to working with their spouses and they go, yeah, we do bring it to the dinner table, right? We don't stop at whenever it's 6-7 o'clock at night. But what boundaries have to be set in order for you to actually have also a healthy family? And it's also healthy for your beautiful daughters, for taking vacations, for creating on this family dynamic. What are some of the boundaries that maybe you're not doing it perfectly, but that works for you?
Well, for me, what became really apparent over the past year is, yes, boundaries are important, but also it was important for me to have a real self-awareness of when I even needed to have this discussion with Brent. Because a lot of times with me, I would understand, okay, I know this problem, I can solve this problem. Am I just trying to externally process it with him so that I can start creating a solution? And is that necessary, or is that going to be dumping on him, right? Because he's my person, right? That's what we do with our spouse, is a safe place. But when it just never ends, I had to be really intentional. So, for example, this weekend, something popped up that was brought to my attention that was kind of a big deal. We have a competitor or a business leaving us false reviews on one of our locations. That's pretty personal to me, especially as I've spent years building our brand presence and our online authority, and I take that seriously. So I knew that this happened like Saturday morning, and I thought, okay, I want to talk about this. Should I talk about it? Because I don't really want to ruin Brent's weekend, right? So in my head, I said, no, I don't need to tell him this. I don't need to dump this on him at that time. That was a boundary. Like I would say weekly, our boundaries can change depending on where we're at in our business and where we're at personally. Right now we're in a building phase, a super strong building phase, and we're changing our model a little bit. So we are talking about our business a little bit more on our personal time than we normally would. In a normal situation, when things have leveled out, we schedule our time that we're going to talk about our business, right? And it's usually for us, it's going to be during the week, during a day when our kids are at school, and we're going to say, hey, this is everything I need to talk about for whatever reason. I either need you to let me vent about this, or I need you to help me solve a problem about this. But let's take this time to discuss what we want to discuss. And we usually try to do it not at the office, not at home, but like go to lunch and just talk about it and take notes, and then not talk about it again, because it can be so overwhelming at times, especially this summer has been a really difficult summer for us. We lost our service manager, and it was very tragic for us to go through that. It was tragic for our team, tragic for his family. So we had to say, okay, we emotionally cannot talk about any of this stuff this weekend. In fact, we're going to go out of town. We're just going to we're just going to take this time for our family, because if you do not set those boundaries, the burnout will happen so, so quick. And it's magnified when you're married to your business partner, because you cannot burn out on your family and burn out on your business. You really have to hold each other accountable.
You absolutely do, and you're absolutely right. And I think this is one of the things that the major things that we actually implemented was that executive meeting, right? So you have an executive meeting, and you're both executive in the company. So you have that executive meeting, you have a set agenda, you have a set time, and then you discuss the issues and you communicate to each other via a system that you create, and then that's it. And then you don't bring into your Saturday and your Sunday. And that is a key thing that you mentioned there in terms of being intentional. You are the one who can decide whether you're going to ruin your weekend or not by the communication that you're going to put out there, right? So and that shows a lot of strength, Leslie, to be able to actually encounter such. I know how important the brand is for you and how proud you are of it and how much work you put into it. And for somebody to go and ruin it for you, I know that it can have an emotional effect, but for you to be able to just say, okay, I'm not going to now communicate on it on Saturday morning, it takes a lot of intention and a lot of strength. But I think that's part of, the leadership skills that you have.
Right. And I think for us, there have been times we have had to really, or there have been seasons that we have gone through, and you were part of this for us, where when we talked about the business, it was only through our task management software. Because the second that was spoken, it was not safe for either of us, right? So we went through that period of time where we could only talk to each other through the software, as far as just so that there wasn't ever any miscommunication. It was simply task based. And that was really helpful at that time. In different seasons, you go through different things, and you learn, you grow, you work on yourself and how you're going to, because again, you're not talking about just someone you see from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You're figuring out, how do I run this with my spouse and flourish and still handle business when it can be ugly. So, it's a lot of giving yourself grace, giving your spouse grace, and figuring out tools that you can use during those times when things can be really difficult.
Absolutely. One thing that I observed with you is I wanted to ask you, what are some of the successful things that you do in order to actually grow the business and continue to grow despite obstacles, because it's not all beautiful and no obstacles. I mean, definitely there are obstacles, like you mentioned, you're also service manager, different things that happen, etc. But you keep going, right? You keep going. You're very tenacious. What gets you going? Like, what makes you not want to give up or not give up? Maybe you want to give up, but you don't give up. So what are some of the things you can share with the listeners and inspire them in terms of continuing?
Gosh, I don't, hearing you say that is so funny because I have always been really tenacious, and that word has probably been used to describe me, and it hasn't always been positive. And sometimes I feel like there's probably things I should have given up that I didn't because I'm just a bulldog. I feel like for specifically Champion Plumbing, this is our kingdom we're building, right? I mean, you said it, at the
Like an
beginning
empire.
building. Yeah, you said empire. Brent have always said this is part of our kingdom. And I think every day, and I pray every day, my faith is first in my life. Like, help me to keep clear on what is kingdom building, God's kingdom and my kingdom. And so we know enough, we've been in it long enough that we know that we can create generational wealth through this business. We can bless our community, we can bless our family, and we do those things. We do those things that we don't even talk about because we believe we're growing God's kingdom and our kingdom. And so I certainly, and people that know me know, I'm very type A, and I can and my brain is always strategizing, right? I'm always like, okay, every time every time I make a deal or take a partner on, my brain tries to figure out, if this goes bad, what do I need to do? What trauma response or whatever you want to call it, my brain is always thinking of both sides of the equation. So back to your question, how do I find ways to keep going? I have a really strong faith. I have a really strong support system personally, and then a professional one. And one thing we have always done is partner with people that are a lot smarter than us and that can speak truth into our lives. And right now, we have done that in our business. So when we get overwhelmed or discouraged or, gosh, how do we figure out this problem? We have those people. We have those people. We have an end goal. We know what our end goal is. So when we get discouraged, we have each other and we have our coaches. And so that's really, we have a machine right now, and it's just fine tuning that machine to keep it going, to make it the best opportunity for our people, for us. So we just cannot give up on the commitment we've made to that, because the decisions we make impact a lot of people. I don't know how many, I think we have 20-ish employees right now. They all have families. We want to be the company that pays the highest to the plumbers in our area. So if you want to complain about pricing, fine. When we say we want our guys to respect what they do, it's not just so they can come in. Like, we want to be life-changing for them. We want them to build wealth. We want to give them opportunity, right? Because that's also part of our kingdom. So we have a lot of responsibility. So every time we make a decision, or we may or may not feel like giving up, we just don't. We just find a solution.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's kind of like being a parent. You don't just give up, right? You continue,
Right.
and you have that responsibility. And definitely, you seek trusted advisors. You do not shy away from paying consultants and paying advisors, and you get, when we worked together, you had other coaches on different areas of the business, and it's really, that just expedites things. That's why you expedited it. Instead of waiting 30 years to figure out what to do, you were able to create that kingdom or that empire in such a short amount of time because you just go for it. And you have your own way of thinking that is different than others, and you don't care what other people say. You know the way and you walk through it and you get there, which is very, very impressive.
Well, and there are parts that I wish I was stronger. I still care about what people say. I just do what I'm going to do anyways. It still affects me. I'm not,
of course,
that so often, I feel like so often, especially in our groups, it's like this, you have to have this shield where you never care. Well, I'm highly sensitive, so I always care. It doesn't stop what I'm going to do though, right? It's like some days I say I might cry about it, but I'm going to cry and still do it, right? And I tell my girls that it's okay to cry, but we're not going to stay there. We're going to still do what we need to do, right? So I'm constantly, I'm always looking for people to help me, probably because I need someone to go, okay, you're doing this right or you're not doing this right. And what we're doing isn't new. Like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If we can find people who have created and grown a successful plumbing company, we're willing to pay them for their advice because we've never done this before, right? I mean, we're in our 5th year. I think we're in our 5th year. Maybe we're in our 6th year. Can't do math today, but of course we want to talk to them. I think more people need coaching, right? They need coaching on their business and then they need therapy in their personal lives.
absolutely, absolutely. So what made you want to start your own podcast? I mean, that is also another avenue, right? So what is the purpose behind that, behind the podcast that you started?
Well, that's a funny story. My friend Cassie was really the driving force behind that. She'd been wanting to start a podcast for some time, because in our industry there are a ton of podcasts. There's just not any female-led podcasts, and we know that there needs to be more representation in our space, and we were missing that. And she kept asking me to do it, and I didn't want to do it. And then finally she got me, and I committed to doing it for a period of time to kind of help get it going. And so it's been really fun. It's definitely gotten me out of my comfort zone. Um, and it's been kind of a wild ride, to be honest. And we're just kind of like riding the roller coaster that it is.
I mean, it's great. I mean, you interviewed me. It's so professional. You have such a professional operation, and you go to conferences and interview people live, and it's just fun. I'm going to include our episode in the show notes so people will see it and then hopefully subscribe to your podcast because you just do it like very professionally and really with a lot of passion to promote women in the trades.
Well, and that probably comes from, we are both, Cassie is actually in Tulsa, which is another large city in Oklahoma. She's a couple hours away, runs a very successful home service company with her husband. We are both not ones, like if we're going to commit to do it, it's going to be a big deal, right? So we did not want it to be like everyone else. We wanted it to be a big deal. And so we made it a big deal. And that meant really investing financially into a producer, into finding the right studio, having a social media strategist. So we ran it a lot of the ways like we run our own businesses because we feel like it's a big deal and we needed to put our money where our mouth is, and we've gotten really great feedback about it. We have gotten some incredibly encouraging and inspirational private messages from other females in this space who would just are excited to see someone like them doing a podcast. You know what I mean? And that has been probably the biggest delight of it all, is just those messages that we get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In closing, let's say one of your daughters will come to you and say, Mom, I want to start a business. What is the best advice? What would be like the 3 things that you will tell them, like in terms of like the best advice that you can give them?
Honestly, I hope that is what they say to me. And I hope that they're so a part of what I do. I mean, half the time when I get on my Zoom meetings, one of them is popping in and out of the screen. They hear the meetings I take in the car. They get to see pictures of what I'm doing. So the example I set for them is so important. And my hope is they do want to start a business and, to be honest, not go to college unless they know exactly what they're going to do with that degree. And I will help them figure it out. You know, I already make financial plans for them so that when they graduate, they can make some decisions on what they want to do with that money. I will set them down and we will come up with a plan on how they can execute it, the challenges they're going to face, all of those things. Like, that would make my heart so happy if there was a true desire there for them to provide a service or product. I would do everything I could to help them figure that out. And my hope is that is what they want to do, to be honest.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give them? Let's say you're sitting next to a table, one of them is saying, I want to open a business. I want to have a roofing company. Okay,
Yeah.
so what will be like one of the things that you look back and you go, wow, I wish I knew that when I started my business?
Well, my hope is they're both very different for me. And the places I hope that I'm weak, they're strong. And that's probably how I parent. So the advice would just be, how are you emotionally going to be able to overcome these challenges? Because I think for me in my business, it's never the stuff in the business that's the obstacle. It's the emotional toll it takes on me to handle those challenges, because everything is fixable, right? I know now you got to have the right insurance, right? You got to have the right coaching. You've got to have the right business plan. Those are simple to me. The hard part is, can you do this and still live a successful personal life, right? That all of my advice would be around, okay, I can help you do this. Do you feel like mentally you're prepared to take this on? And if you're not, what can we do to get you there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great way
I don't know if that
look at it,
answers your
because
question. Because I
it
feel
does, because it's true.
okay.
Yeah. No, it's
For me,
whatever is true for you, if that
yeah.
is true for you. And that is definitely an aspect. And I think this is what you bring on from your perspective in terms of there are going to be emotional challenges for sure, because you're going to face different things.
Mhm.
And you will have to become stronger and stronger with everything in order to actually overcome it, right? So, but as you said, having the support system is very, very important. I'm sure for your girls, it's going to be very important. I mean, they're going to have a mother like you that already went through that. So you can be there for them and cheer them, but also, pick them up when they fall, or pick them up when they're on the floor and say, hey, I've experienced this, I've gone through it. Here's some advice, here's some ideas, etc. So absolutely, I understand that.
I would be thrilled if either of them right now, like, the way we're building out their future is I think a lot about college, and we're not going to do college if it's just for fun. We're not doing it for the experience. It's too expensive for them to try to pay that off. So right now, I have started bringing them to every real estate closing that I go to. Every time we buy an investment property, they sit at the closing table with me and they sign their name on a piece of paper, and they get to observe all of these deals that I'm doing. When I talk about what I'm doing on the podcast, I show it on my phone because it's really important for me that they know that they have options, whatever option they choose, whether they want to be a mom and stay at home. I just want it to be their choice, right? I want them to be able to take care of themselves. So whatever they decide, I want them to know that they have options and they get to be in control of what that is.
See, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. And that really shows who you are and your care and how you treat people. And, this is, I think, a great, great closure to this podcast, because I think it's definitely a very strong and great message. So thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. It was a pleasure having you and having this conversation with you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so honored you wanted me to be on.
You're very welcome. Bye for now.
Bye, Adi.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.